You can see that these slides are actually from the Kotler book. And you also see that here the chapter, corresponding chapter according to the book is actually chapter 6, right? Chapter 6 here. So if you have the ebook already, and you want to look at this chapter, you want to read through the chapter, this is actually chapter 6. Okay? All right. So I know for most of you who are in semester 5, this is not the first time you're learning about segmentation and targeting. Rather, you've learned it almost every other semester. So in my mind, I would imagine that most of you already understand segmentation and also targeting. So typically, when you actually sit down now, right now, and you reflect on segmentation, some of you might actually say, oh, segmentation tu ada element geographic, ada criteria yang dinamakan psychographics, ada criteria yang dikatakan behavioral, and those are the criteria that we would typically use to actually segment okay. So yes, that's all great. And what we're going to do today is that, as usual with semester 5 topics, we're going to take the existing topics and then we're going to add on a little bit more. So in the slides that you will be looking at in the next hour, what we're going to do, or what we're going to challenge ourselves to do, is we're going to consider a little bit more, a little bit deeper, all right? So maybe some points of view that you've never considered it that way, we will now introduce it in this chapter. Okay, so this chapter has got a couple of learning objectives, as you can see, and we're going to start with these two, 6.1 and also 6.2, which is where we will actually look at what is targeting actually. So let's just basically re-evaluate what we understand from targeting. And then after that, we will actually look at segmentation and targeting from a strategic point of view, all right? Then after that, we go on to look at how we deliver the offerings to the target customers. And then what are strategies that we can use for multiple market segments. And then we're going to look at segmenting the consumer markets and also the business markets. So for most of you, I know you're very familiar with segmenting consumer markets. So individuals like you and me, you're very familiar already. But how much time have you given to the business markets? And the fact that actually business markets themselves can also be segmented. Okay, so let's start with the first slide, which you'll see that it focuses on identifying target consumers here. So here, when we say that we're trying to target or we're trying to choose the target consumers, what the organization is actually trying to do, apa yang company tu tengah buat, ialah dia tengah, or they are looking at certain marketing opportunities that dia nak go after, and then based on that, customer mana yang sesuai, customer mana yang dia nak target. So therefore, bila dia nak target ataupun when that organization actually wants to target consumers from the different segments that are actually available, it would be that this organization might actually ignore some segments. Okay, so here, what you're going to do is you're going to imagine a landscape, a marketplace and a market landscape. And within that market landscape, you know that there are many types of consumers which actually exist within it. So in all these consumers that exist within it, what the company is trying to do is that the company typically goes out, it segments all the consumers and tries to group them or put them into groups or find out what are the existing groups that are out there. Okay, so typically we would say that inside a marketplace, there are many different segments, and then the company goes in to select the segments that they best can actually create value for. So when they select one, it could be that they leave out or they ignore segments that don't fit into their products and services that they can actually offer. So typically when we talk about this topic, we frequently say that the company will go out and select. But when we paint that picture of the company going out and select, we hardly ever say that the company is actually ignoring the other consumers. So now that you're in fifth semester, try to imagine this little idea where when you actually select, when the company actually goes out and selects one segment or two segments or three segments out of a total of maybe 10 segments, it might actually be ignoring something like 7 segments. And so we want to try to understand the logic of why would a company want to ignore 7 segments. So when they choose 1, 2, and 3 segments, they ignore 7 segments. And of course, they should have very good reasoning of why they would leave out these 7 segments. Typically, it might be because their product that they want to sell doesn't fit or doesn't fulfill the wants of that consumer, or they know that they cannot fully satisfy those consumers. So they rather focus on these 3 segments that they actually choose, which they are quite confident that they can actually serve very well. Okay, so essentially that is a choice of selection. When you select one, sometimes you have to leave out the rest. So let's say you're in a situation where the company actually selects all. So out of the 10 segments, they say we want all 10 segments, all right? So what the company is actually doing, or what that organization is doing, is they're actually going for mass marketing. So in mass marketing, they are actually ignoring segment differences. So while inside the landscape, you can see that you've got 10 segments, they say that, oh no, we are going to ignore all this and we're just going to go after the whole market. So we know that there are some product categories where they do not require a lot of differentiation, or the standard product actually will actually satisfy most of the consumers. So I want you to think about things like a standard black umbrella. Okay, so a standard black umbrella, when you have something like umbrella, which you can actually see its pattern, its function, hasn't really changed very much in 50 years or so. Okay, so for a product like that, when I sell umbrellas, I might not actually segment the market, and I might say I make very good umbrellas for everyone. So what that business owner is actually doing is actually ignoring segment differences. So when I sell black umbrellas, for example, can I actually sell to certain segments? In actual fact, I can actually break down my product further. For example, I can actually make umbrellas for children. So children, because their size are much smaller, they require smaller umbrellas, then they're able to actually carry it. But here, for the purpose of this company that makes black umbrellas, they might not see that that would be something that they want to pursue. Therefore, what they're doing is they're just ignoring the segment differences and goes after the whole market with only one offer, which is the black umbrella. So that's a decision that the company actually needs to make. And what the company does internally is that they will actually weigh out. If they actually start to make different products for different segments, what's the profit that they actually get? So if the profit that they get doesn't make sense to the cost that they have to put in to actually make smaller umbrellas, then maybe it doesn't make sense for them to go after those segments. So that could be a reason why some organizations just say, we're going to go for mass marketing. We're not going to differentiate. We're not going to leave any groups out. We're just going to go for the whole market with one standard product. Okay. Okay. The next one that we're going to look at is the targeted marketing. So inside the targeted marketing, what happens is that we might actually be selling different products to all the different segments of the market. So different products to all the different segments of the market. So the key thing here is that if you have 10 different segments, they want all 10 different segments. But as we've already established, sometimes companies are unable to cater to all the wants of the segments because the segments are different. So here is saying that when they actually use a targeted marketing, what they're doing is they're going for all the different segments, but they have different products to sell. Okay, so this is a one-to-one approach. And you can actually see that some organizations, right, some organizations do have a wide variety of products. They think that their array of products can actually go after different segments. So if they do have that, then they can actually go after this targeted marketing. So you can start to see already a lot of the choices they make in terms of the targets that they actually choose, ada kaitan rapat ataupun ada hubung kait rapat dengan company dia boleh buat apa. So company dia kena ada kebolehan untuk menghasilkan produk-produk yang berbeza untuk segmen-segmen yang berbeza, and then depending on dia punya capability untuk menghasilkan barang tu, barulah dia boleh pergi pursue whether dia nak mass marketing ke ataupun dia hanya nak dual segment ke. That is a decision that nanti dia akan buat berdasarkan keupayaan of their own organisation. Okay. Then I'm also very sure most of you dah banyak kali dengar tentang mass customization. So dalam mass customization, you tahu yang ada proses customization yang berlaku. Okay, so proses customization ni can be understood as the customers actually have different requirements. Okay, the customers have different requirements. However, because they have some sort of technology or some sort of software, they can actually mass customize the product to the individual needs. So an example of mass customization that all of you use on a daily basis is Canva. So Canva is a software punya platform. It's an online punya site where you can go in and you can design your own kad jemputan raya lah, you can design your own slides and things like that. They have some existing templates inside there, but ultimately you can customize everything inside the canvas to your own liking. So kalau you tak suka template tu warna pink, you boleh tukar kepada hitam dan sebagainya. So when you have that software, then what we are basically offering to the consumer is kita offer mass customization di mana menggunakan software ataupun teknologi tersebut, they can actually meet each customer's punya requirement. So it's up to you lah, maybe your kad raya ada ketupat, maybe your kad raya ada masjid dan sebagainya. It's up to you to make and then you give to your mother. Nah mak, kita dah ada kad raya. Alright? So here, if you actually go to Nando's and certain fast service restaurants, you will see that they have begun to introduce these kiosks. And you know that when you actually choose your soft drink, you can choose soft drinks, not only Coca-Cola and Coke Zero and so on, but there are actually other drinks that are within the company of Coca-Cola that you can actually choose. So what happens is that instead of having carrying a lot of stock of different types of drinks within their establishment ataupun dia restaurant, sebagai contoh dekat McDonald's ataupun you boleh nampak yang ni terang-terang dekat Nando's and also KFC mungkin. So what you do instead ialah dia ada satu machine macam ni, then you touch screen dia and then dia akan bancuh air tu untuk you. Basically they have the components of the drink already set inside the machine lah. Then they mix or they activate certain ingredients to actually come out when you actually order or choose this drink. Okay? Okay, so now I want to check your attention if you're still with me. For those of you who pernah pergi Nando's dan menggunakan mesin ni, for those of you who have gone to Nando's and you've used this little machine here to make your drink or to obtain your drink, can you please give me a love heart? Can you give me a heart? Ada kan? Okay, very good. Thank you, Rania. Harif tak guna. Harif, you kena pergi Nando's. Nando's sedap. Okay, so you can see that for mass customization, dia perlukan technology. They need some sort of technology to enable that software or that piece of equipment is actually able to meet the customer's requirements. And it's very important here to meet the customer's requirements, because if you don't meet the customer punya requirement, then you're not creating value for the customer. Customer tu tak dapat apa yang dia nak. So here they have to be very clear that they understand apakah customer punya requirement, dan kemudian baru dia bangunkan dia punya teknologi untuk allow dia untuk buat mass customization. So by extension of that, ini bermaksud yang tak semua company boleh buat mass customization. Okay, tak semua company boleh buat. Kalau dia tak invest dalam that vision untuk bangunkan that technology, dia memang tak boleh buat benda macam ni. Okay, alright. So some companies might actually choose mass customization. Sekiranya they can actually support, right? They can support in a mass basis how they want to roll out dia punya product dan sebagainya. Okay, now we go to the difference, trying to understand the difference between strategic versus tactical targeting. Okay, so that means that even targeting, kita ada fokus yang berbeza. Fokus dia yang pertama adalah fokus pada strategic punya approach to targeting. Dan fokus yang kedua adalah tactical punya approach kepada targeting. So for strategic targeting, this is understood as when a company goes out and it targets consumers which they choose. So now they choose which are the consumer groups that the company can fulfill. Okay, they can fulfill. So confidently dia tahu, okay, consumer need segment 1, 2 dan 3 adalah A, B dan C, dan company kita boleh buat A, B dan C, maka based on that, we actually go after segments A, B and C. Okay, so that action of choosing ataupun targeting customer yang sesuai untuk company saya adalah dipanggil sebagai strategic targeting. Okay, strategic targeting. And then we go on to the next target, which is tactical targeting. Okay, so what is the difference between strategic and tactical? So untuk tactical punya targeting, dia adalah, or they are looking at identifying ways in which the company can reach this strategically important customers. So yang ni dia punya fokus ialah bagaimana kita nak capai segmen-segmen customer yang tadi kita dah pilih yang strategic kepada business kami. Okay, so in strategic they are choosing customer mana yang sesuai untuk kita punya business yang kita boleh satisfy, and then untuk tactical dia mencari apakah cara-cara di mana dia boleh sampai ataupun they can actually reach this strategically important punya customers. Alright, so here what they are trying to do is they are trying to mengkaji and to understand and to find solution for reaching all these customers, and they want to reach them in an effective and also cost efficient punya manner. So dua-dua kena buat, strategic kena buat dan juga tactical pun kena buat. So strategic dengan tactical ni adalah benda yang wajib kena buat dan dia bukan mutually exclusive. Maksudnya dia bukan dua benda yang separate. Rather, lepas dia dah pilih dia punya strategic punya segment, then after that dia akan buat tactical punya targeting to find out, okay, now how are we going to reach the segments that we have already chosen. Okay? Okay. So when they're looking at strategic targeting, okay, how do they think about it? Okay, when they're thinking about strategic targeting, dia nak pilih tu, masa nak memilih tu, how do they actually think about it? So they use two criteria. One is the target's compatibility, and the other criteria they use is the target punya attractiveness. Okay, so you can see here compatibility is dia tanya diri dia sendiri, or they are asking themselves or reflecting on themselves whether their company can really create value for the target customers or not. So here the underlying principle is that we do not want to sell to people who actually don't want our product. Their natural underlying wants do not actually match with what our organization can offer. So if you're doing that, definitely if you try to push the product down the consumer's throat, they're going to be very unhappy about it. So of course we don't want that. What we prefer, what we want is that we want to find the consumers which we know our products can actually create value for them. They feel that, okay, our products are actually beneficial to them. So that's where you'll see that what they're looking for is target compatibility, right? Then we also have target attractiveness. So target attractiveness is that we have to look at whether these customers can actually create superior value for the company. So they want to know that these particular customers might actually be very interested to buy dia punya products. Okay, very interested to buy dia punya products. Okay, and we can break it down a little bit further dekat sini. Okay, but before we go into target attractiveness, let's look at target compatibility in deeper form. Okay, so here when we look at target compatibility, of course, what we're trying to do, as you can see here, is that we're trying to create superior value for target consumers. So we're going after the consumers that would have the ones that we can actually cater for. Okay, now one more reflection that they have to do, one more reflection that the company has to do is that this particular company or my company has to be able to outdo the competition. Okay, so here, why don't you think about the marketplace for running shoes? Okay, you think about a marketplace for running shoes. And inside a marketplace for running shoes, I want you to name a few brands that you are either wearing right now or you want to buy. So you can put the name inside the chat as Sophia wonderfully did. And then you can name a few brands or a brand that you are aware of that is actually inside the marketplace and you see them as competitors. So it might be a brand that you want to wear. It might also be a brand that you hope to buy. So these are running shoes. Okay, so Nike, Adidas, Puma, A6, Adidas, Nike. Okay, so now you can see already inside the marketplace, as typically we have in our everyday lives, there are not many marketplaces where there is no competition. Most marketplaces have got competition. Most products and services that we know of have got some form of competition. So when we say that they have competition, that means that there is another company that makes something similar to what that company actually makes. And by that extension, that means that there are other companies that can fulfill the wants of the customers. Okay, there are other companies that can fulfill the wants of the customers or can create value for the target customers. Okay, so here, when they actually consider, okay, when a company actually considers, let's say in running shoes, they're actually trying to consider whether they can do something very well. They might actually need to compare with their competition to see what is their advantage. Okay, what is their advantage? So some companies or different companies will have different types of advantages, and they will also have different capabilities to actually create different types of product. So in this example, I'm just going to quickly show you two companies that I'm quite sure you've seen before in the shopping mall. This is the newcomer, which is Hoka. Okay, if you've seen Hoka before or if you're currently wearing Hoka, please give me a heart. You've seen Hoka before, you're currently wearing Hoka. Okay, so quite a number of you have seen Hoka. They spend quite a lot of money on promotion. So if you go to the mall, you definitely see them. If you've actually worn a Hoka before, that means you go to the store, you try it, or you're currently wearing a Hoka, give me a thumbs up. Sekarang you tengah pakai Hoka ataupun you ada pergi kedai untuk cuba Hoka. Okay, so Daniel, Amma did not, Hazim did not. Tak. Okay, so you know the brand but you belum cuba. Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Then there is also another brand. Oh, Adiba has worn Hoka. Okay, good. So there's also another brand which I know you know better. And this brand has been in Malaysia for a very long time. And this one is A6. Okay, so A6, I'm very sure all of you know lah. Because they've been around for a long time in Malaysia. It's also a very popular brand for all of you, right? Not only for their running shoes, but also for their badminton shoes and so on and so forth. It's actually very, badminton shoes are quite affordable, right? So you'll see that in the marketplace for the running shoes, their running shoes are actually comparable to Hoka's price. So they are all about between the range of 600 to 800 lah. The latest model is all 600 to 800. And these are shoes where serious runners will actually buy and wear. So the ones that want to start to compete in their first 5K, half marathon and so on, they will actually go and pick up a Hoka and they will start using brands like this, Asics, Hoka, Brooks, and so on and so forth. Okay, so if I'm Hoka, and you know that Hoka is a new player, right, that just came in. If I'm Hoka, before I actually launch Hoka and I'm doing my targeting exercise, I will actually look at my company and see whether I can find segments that are actually compatible to my organization. And within my organization, naturally, if I'm confident I want to launch my brand, I want to launch my business, then I must have some confidence on something that I do very, very well. So I must have some sort of ability that I know that with my product that I'm going to launch in a marketplace where I have competitors, I can still, get a portion of the business. That means I can still sell my product. So if I can still sell my product, that means that I must have something that actually helps me stand out. And so for Hoka, if you actually tried the shoe, you will see that they have this one, technological expertise or some sort of expertise, because their shoes actually feel very different from Asics. Hoka's shoes actually feel like you're wearing clouds on your feet. And Asics generally has a harder feel. So it's for wearers that prefer the harder touch on the floor, whereas Hoka is for people who like the cloud feel when they actually wear shoes. So Hoka, when it was launched, you would have seen that they actually came out with shoes that are actually very memorable. So once a brand was launched, people started to test the shoes and so on. You can see that they do have some sort of difference in terms of the technology of the shoe that they actually offer. So the technology of the shoe that they actually offer comes from their expertise. Okay, and they can have a product that's different, feels different on the foot because they are the technology yang Asics tak ada. Okay, and that actually comes from, you can see here, maybe some sort of intellectual property, patent, or trade secrets that they actually hold. That means they know how to do it. And Asics maybe later on might tiru or might actually come up with another brand that's similar, especially if Hoka actually starts to sell better than Asics. Okay. So my point here is that within the organization, okay, bila dia reflect on dia punya compatibility, that comes from within their punya organization. And within the organization, when we want to deliver the value to the consumer, it is actually made up of all this. It is made up of kita punya capabilities within the organization, which not only is based on kita punya technological expertise, but it also maybe comes from the fact that kita ada skilled punya employees that pandai design kasut punya technology. Mungkin kita ada something very different like the latest punya production facility, ataupun kita ada access kepada getah yang lain daripada lain. Mungkin it's actually from Malaysia. Something different to actually set out kita punya ability to actually compete with other brands. So the takeaway point here is that it will come from the company itself. And within the company itself, you will see that it can be broken down into things like dia punya business infrastructure, dia punya access to scarce resources, employees dia, expertise dia, brand dia, dan juga collaborator networks. Okay, so for Hoka has actually done very well because in a very short period of time, their profile actually go up quite quickly. A lot of people actually talk about Hoka. A lot of people actually wear Hoka, and you can see that they actually build their brand quite strongly. That some of the influencers online and some of the people who know about fitness punya running shoes and sebagainya have begun promoting Hoka. Okay, so the capabilities within the organization, they have to match back with whether it's actually compatible with what the target consumer actually wants. And one of the things when they compare is that dia boleh outdo dia punya competition, dia confidence, but dia ada dia punya kebolehan dia. Then mungkin dia akan pilih untuk masuk that particular market. So untuk dia punya kebolehan untuk outdo dia punya competition, it boils down to dia punya core competency. Core competency also is not a new buzz phrase for all of you. I know that you've learned about core competency in other marketing subjects as well. So core competency here is we're looking at whether that company has some sort of competitive punya advantage. They do something really, really well. And they do something really, really well to the point where competitors dia susah untuk imitate. It's very difficult for the competitors to make the exact same thing. So when it's very difficult that that product cannot be imitated or imitate, but you can see that it's slightly fake and so on, you know that then that is what actually sets the company apart. So when you think about core competency, right? When you think about core competency, I want you to think about a company like Apple versus a company like Samsung. So both are very successful. Both have got their mobile phone models, but the things that they offer through their mobile phone and how you know them as the consumer is actually different. So for Apple mobile phones, you know that you're getting a whole ecosystem that is not Android based. You know that many a times they actually say that they make very good phones with very good cameras, to the fact that they can boast and say that they can even shoot a whole movie by using the iPhone, and even some celebrities' music video is actually made using the iPhone. Okay, so is it true when they claim? So that's where, as consumers, we back up and we try to see, oh yeah, is it really very good? So if it's proven very good, like for example, for Apple, it's over time, it's already proven that they have a competitive advantage, something that's very difficult for their competitors to actually imitate, then that will actually set them apart. That will really set them apart from dia punya competitors dekat dia punya marketplace. So one of the reasons for, or one of the logic when we look at this core competency and also competitive advantage, is that you can see that brands try to set themselves apart by choosing different competitive advantage. Even though we know that Apple and Samsung are two mobile phones, but you can see that they don't go in the same direction. They actually go in two different directions, or in different directions, because they are trying to capture different segments within their punya marketplace. So for Samsung, perhaps they have already considered, should we go in the same direction as Apple? And they found that, no, it's okay. We can actually go in our own direction with our own technological punya expertise. So that's the decision that what organizations actually decide when they decide on where they want to lead their core competency. Okay, now I have a question for all of you. My question is, do you think you need to invest a lot of money in coming up with the company's core competency ataupun dia punya competitive advantage? So if you think that a lot of research and development needs to be poured into the competitive advantage, to building the competitive advantage, please give me a thumbs up. If you think that, I repeat, if you think that a lot of money has to go into research and development to build their punya competitive advantage, please give me a thumbs up. Okay, Carol, Sophia, Hafiza, who else? Siti Aisha, Hafiz, Firdaus. Okay, so that's a hint, all right? That's a hint already, where if you want to create a very clear competitive advantage, want to create something that competitors have a hard time to imitate, the company has to choose to invest inside building that competitive advantage. Okay, that competitive advantage doesn't come out of thin air. So these are all strategic directions. Dia kena tahu what they want to build, how these pieces all fit together, ultimately to deliver the value to the consumer. So maybe right now we can see that Apple has a lot of cool products that they are actually rolling out, but that products that they want to roll out is actually built a long time ago or some time ago, where they actually perlu bangunkan dia punya technology one step at a time until dia boleh launch a product yang dia rasa dia punya target market actually want. So they have to pour money into building their punya competitive advantage. It doesn't come out of thin air. And this putting money into different research and development is actually a strategic punya direction that every year, every couple of years, dia punya companies actually have to decide which direction they want to go in. Okay, so next we'll look at dia punya target punya attractiveness. Okay, kita ulang kaji sikit. Apa saya cakap tadi, dah cakap banyak kan, right? Nge bising saja. Alright, so here you'll see that we were talking about strategic punya targeting. Gelak you. Okay, so we were talking about strategic targeting. Tadi strategic targeting ni ada dua. Kita tengok daripada the point of view of target compatibility dengan target attractiveness. So tadi target compatibility kita dah tengok. Sekarang kita masuk kepada dia punya target attractiveness. Okay, so untuk target attractiveness ni, kita tengok balik apa benda ni. Okay, so for target attractiveness, we are going to evaluate it from the point of view of whether the market segment can now create value for the company. Okay, tadi kita sibuk nak tengok whether we can create value for the customer. Then, as you know, in marketing punya process, once you dah create value untuk customer willingly nak bayar barang tu, dia exchange, dia bagi duit. Okay, kita ambil duit dia, and the money that kita ambil ataupun the sales that we actually make actually contributes to creating superior value for the company. So if a customer buys one time, okay, they have some value to the company. If the customer buys many times, then obviously this is a customer that we want to keep because the customer is creating superior value for the company. Okay, maka dengan itu, kita will actually look at the monetary punya value dan juga dia punya strategic punya value. So monetary value is very obvious kan, because we have to target the customers that can pay, right? And we want to target the customers that maybe can fit with our product, can have growth, meaning that maybe they will buy other products inside our company, or they can afford our products. So when we look at monetary value, kita nak tengok, or we want to look at dia punya customer punya revenue. Okay, how much money do we make from this customer? How much sales can we make from this customer? So when we are looking at how much sales we can actually make from this customer, we want to consider what is the market size, segment 2, what is the size, okay, what is the rate of growth? Adakah segmen ni boleh membesar? Ataupun adakah segmen ni boleh continue in increasing in terms of value? Adakah customer ni dia punya buying power will increase or decrease or stay the same over time? Okay, and then adakah dia boleh afford kita punya company punya product? Okay, so for some types of brands, you know that they might selectively target customers that can spend a lot of money. So if I'm dealing with a luxury brand, dia adalah luxury punya item, maybe it's a Birkin bag, okay, or Birkin, the company Birkin, and you know that one handbag actually costs a lot of money. Okay, definitely ada 5 figure. Okay, ada 5 figures in the price. So for a company like Birkin, they would definitely target people who are willing to pay a lot of money. So if they are willing to pay a lot of money for the bag, maybe they have somebody in their family that earns a lot of money, or they themselves earn a lot of money. And so when we look at dia punya income, maybe income dia adalah income yang sangat-sangat besar, ataupun they are listed somewhere in the world's richest so and so, right? Or they are CEOs of companies or board members of companies. So our job is to actually target the right people based on dia punya monetary punya value. So this doesn't mean that if we have customers that dia punya income adalah rendah, that dia tak ada value. Tak. It is actually we will compare based on what is the price of the item that we want to sell. Because we know that for goods and services that we actually use, not all the items are actually very expensive items. Luxury is one segment by itself, or it is a whole business idea by itself, but we also have the everyday goods that are supposed to be very affordable. We also have goods that dia punya selling point adalah it is everyday low price. Okay, so it really depends on what is the item, what is the price of the item, and who do they actually choose that will actually correspond and fit properly like a jigsaw puzzle in terms of dia punya monetary punya value. Okay, and then they will also consider what is the cost to actually serve these customers. So you can already imagine the higher the price, okay, the higher the price of the goods. Typically, when it comes to the luxury punya segment requires a lot of costs to actually serve their punya customer. Meaning that if I am Datin so and so ataupun Tan Sri so and so, I will not be buying my Birkin bag online. You nak suruh saya guna Shopee, Lazada untuk beli my custom Birkin bag? No way. So of course we have to consider lah. So how do we deliver? How do we deliver our product and our service? And how much cost is actually connected to that. So not only that, okay, not only the support that we need to give when they want to buy the item, but also after they buy the item, how much service needs to be given, what is the cost of service for how long. Okay, so this one is particularly pertinent. That means dia penting for some types of products. Macam sebagai contoh, kalau kita di dalam business creator. So business creator, for all of you who are buying your first car soon ataupun your second car soon, we make the decision to buy the car sometimes based on affordability. But to use the car for the next 5 years or 8 years and so on, we actually do expect that dia punya support adalah bagus. So we'll look for dia punya service center dan sebagainya. Service center doesn't run out of thin air as well. Semestinya dia ada cost juga. And so we need to also pay attention to dia punya cost untuk make sure that kita boleh continue to actually keep the customer satisfied. Alright? So here, dia punya target attractiveness adalah berdasarkan dia punya monetary value. Okay, secara menyeluruh you nampak dia masuk cost dia also. Okay, then untuk attractiveness-nya, kita juga tengok dari segi strategic. Okay, and when we look at this strategic value, we are looking at the benefit bukan financials ataupun the non-monetary benefits. Okay, non-monetary benefits. Tadi kita dah tengok monetary benefits, sekarang kita masuk kepada non-monetary punya benefits. So for non-monetary benefits, kita ada 3, social value dia, scale value dia, dan juga information value. Okay, so this is not difficult to understand. As you can see, if you read the definition, you already can guess what is meant by this. Basically, we are trying to weigh what are the non-monetary benefits that we can obtain based on that particular selection of segment. Okay, so here if you are looking at dia punya social value, what we are looking at is that we are seeing whether the company actually has any influence to actually target the customers, okay, or other potential buyers. So here they're looking at people like dia punya opinion leaders, trendsetters, influencers, okay, influencers that might actually occupy that particular segment. Okay, there are some influencers, as you know, actually are spread out within the marketplace. There are some influencers that they are luxury travel. These are like the Datin type of influencer. There are some influencers that are the everyday Joe, macam you and me, macam me, everyday. What are the everyday things that you actually go and buy? There are some influencers that are tentang kewangan, penjimatan dan sebagainya. So there are a lot of opinion leaders that actually occupy certain part of the marketplace. So we're trying to match lah within this marketplace what are who is occupying that space. Okay, biasanya consumer kalau dia dalam affordable punya group, who did they listen to? Who are their key opinion leaders inside there? Okay, and can that be a value to the organization? Okay, playing on that, okay, just based on that, we will skip to the next one, which is information. Then I balik kepada scale value. So informational value here is where we actually look at the information punya side. Okay, and for the information punya side, we are actually trying to look at how the early adopters, okay, how the early adopters can help us to spread their punya information about that particular product or service yang we actually want to promote and want to sell to the segments. Okay, so are there any space within those segments and the people who occupy those segments where the information can actually travel quite quickly and can also be accepted by the consumers. Okay, and finally kita ada scale value. Okay, so scale value, okay, scale value is where we consider whether dia punya consumer base boleh membantu company tu untuk membesar, scale in size, membesar. Alright, so here you can see that typically when an organisation is actually new, sekiranya dia brand yang baru dan dia tak ada customer base, it's quite often observed that new companies or new brands may actually start by having a low price. That means that they target segments with very low margin. Okay, and that means that they will use a low price to penetrate their punya segments that give them low margin or sometimes even not profitable sebab dia hanya nak build user base. Okay, dia hanya nak, okay, dia hanya nak build user base. So as Carol type in the chat, awareness dulu. So dia just nak you cuba tau. So to entice you untuk cuba, dia bagi you very low price. So dia target dulu, maybe they know that this is not kita real punya segment, tapi these are segments where like your friend said, they build awareness dulu, they get people to actually talk about it, dia nak brand dia naik dan sebagainya. So they target dulu that group, and then once they target that group start to guna, then that group will actually talk about it, kita dapat informational punya value, that group will actually talk about it, then dia akan spread dalam the segment until they get to the segment that they really want. So dia akan adjust dia punya price accordingly sampai dia hit mana dia nak pergi. So of course, once the price has gone up and they already have an established punya user base, dia tak akan turunkan the price anymore lah, because dia memerlukan dia punya margin untuk naik supaya dia dapat dia punya what you call that, the profitability, right? But it's a tactic, it's a strategy and a tactic that you typically will find quite often dalam the marketplace. Okay, so that indicates that dia select benda segment tu sebab dia ada scale value. Okay, scale value. Alright. Okay, now that I finish on strategic targeting, okay, strategic targeting dah habis ya. Let me just go back a bit lah to make sure that it's very clear. Tadi kita kata kita ada strategic versus tactical targeting. Okay, so for strategic targeting, you can see the definition is given here, and then this is for tactical punya targeting. And for strategic punya targeting, you'll see that we need to look at dia punya compatibility dan juga dia punya attractiveness. Dan kita ada pelbagai ciri-ciri that actually capture dia punya compatibility, dan kita juga ada ciri-ciri untuk capture dia punya attractiveness, which is monetary and also dia punya strategic punya value. Okay, so you can see that this is a more broad picture punya approach. So that means that if you're doing this exercise, let's say you kena buat exercise ni untuk you punya marketing plan, for example, you can explain lah kenapa segment ni. What is your basis, what is your argument, what is your justification. Dan you boleh gunakan kriteria-kriteria yang diletakkan dalam sini untuk membuat justifikasi kenapa secara strategik segmen-segmen tersebut telah dipilih. So once you already pilih segmen-segmen tu, you boleh match balik dengan apa yang kita belajar tadi, which is the broad punya approach, which is, for example, you boleh pilih mass customization, then you boleh justify lah mass customization kenapa, ataupun you boleh pilih mass marketing, ataupun you boleh pilih targeting a few segments saja, kenapa you pilih segmen macam tu. So I hope you see very clearly dia semua ada hubung kait tau. dia semua ada hubung kait, and sebenarnya kalau you ikut slide tu dia akan membantu untuk bila cara you explain kenapa you pilih that segment is actually based on the logical flows that are already outlined inside the slide. So it's meant for you to use as a guideline, tetapi of course dia punya details of dia punya maklumat tu akan berubah-ubah based on the company and also the consumers that you are actually looking at. Okay? Okay. So sekarang kita masuk kepada tactical targeting. So now we look at tactical targeting. So tactical targeting would be very familiar to all of you, because tactical targeting is where what you've been learning all this while, where you can already see very clearly bila kita nak profile kita punya customer, we can use criteria or characteristics like dia punya demographic, geographic, behavioral, psychographic factors. Okay, demographic and geographic, I won't really. You can see here, I didn't put any explanation here because I know most of you know what it is. So demographic, just as a refresher, could be things like your ethnicity, your age, things like you punya gender dan sebagainya. That is all demographic punya factors. So demographic factors, you can already imagine that dia memang ada banyak, and demographic factors sering kali digunakan, very often is used because it's very easy to obtain. It's very clear punya categories that it's very easy for us to get out of the consumer. Similarly dengan dia punya geographic factors as well, that's based on where we live or the location of our work, whichever proximity to the business that we are actually trying to find out. Okay. Now, behavioral factors, I know that most of you have learned this many times. Dah banyak kali you belajar. But sometimes, I do see that students, they're confused sikit tentang behavioral punya factors. Dia tak sure lah. They have an idea. Memang all of you have a idea of behavioral punya factors. But sometimes you're not certain. So to just reiterate on this point, you boleh nampak dekat sini, I give you some indicators dekat sini ataupun some hint dekat sini where behavior factors or behavioral factors would mean how the consumer buys the item in terms of how often do they buy. Okay. At which price point do they always buy? If it's 99 cents, you'll see the volume of people go up. If the price goes up to RM2, you see that the volume actually goes down. So they're responding to the price that's actually offered to them. So price sensitivity, are they very sensitive to changes? Not very sensitive to changes? Why? So we're trying to understand. Okay, then dia ke mana? Which outlet choice? Are they loyal customers or not? And loyal here would mean that kita kena interpret. Loyal ni bermaksud that dia kena beli repeatedly. So it's actually connected to dia punya frequency of purchase in comparison with time. So kalau dia loyal dah loyal berapa lama? Berapa yang dia beli? Berapa tahun dia dah loyal? So these are things that we have to break down. Okay, we have to break down dia punya loyalty at what level. And we can already start to see loyalty tu kita boleh break down lagi kepada those who are highly loyal, tak pernah guna brand lain, dengan those yang sekali-kala dia ada guna brand lain. So loyalty is idea that we always look at, but in actual fact dia adalah something that diam-diam ubi berisi. You kena kupas lagi, you boleh break down lagi loyalty into the understanding based on dia punya business, based on time, amount of money and frequency yang dia beli. Okay, so behavioral factors could also fall within consumer punya decision making process. So dulu in semester 2, semester 3, something like that, you learn consumer behavior kan. And dalam consumer behavior tu you nampak yang dia ada banyak konsep-konsep psychology. So you have to understand things like, oh, how does the consumer actually make the decision? You ada mode decision making yang you kena hafal dulu, yang ada dia punya steps, logical steps of how they actually make decision. Okay, so those decision models that you actually see actually falls into dia punya behavioral factors because kita nak faham, kita nak cuba fahami bila dia buat decision tu, dia buat decision macam mana. Okay, ada impulse buyers ke ataupun dia selalu deliberate lama-lama baru dia beli ke, and then only we will understand okay how to influence these consumers to actually get them closer to the decision or what information they need to actually make that decision. Okay, so this one is when we talk about behavioral punya factors, ia adalah berkait rapat dengan pembelian, dengan tabiat pembelian dan cara membuat pembelian. Okay, now we go to psychographic punya factors. So for psychographic punya factors, kita nak cuba menyelami siapakah individu tersebut. What are the individual differences within the consumers that actually forms them into different segments. So to understand the individual, the emphasis is on understanding the individual. We use things like dia punya attitudes, dia punya value systems, dia punya life interest dan juga dia punya lifestyles dan juga dia punya interest. So value system, this one is apakah dia punya, what do you call that, their internal punya system within them, what do they value. Okay, so for example, when I say that, let's see, whose nama is actually here. When I say that Sophia is actually a very honest system, pula. When I say that Sophia is actually a very honest person, that means that maybe on the inside, Sophia actually values honesty, purity. She might value religion. She might keep the religion very closely. So each person's value system is actually different. And most of the time, your value systems are shaped by what your parents have given you, your caretaker has given you. But as you grow up, your value systems can actually change. So that means you can actually consider whether you want to continue being a very honest person or you want to tutup satu mata because tutup satu mata makes more sense to you right now. Okay, so that's up to you. But the point here is that when we actually study psychographics in the context of consumer behavior, that means membeli barang, tabiat untuk membeli barang, gelagat pengguna, we're actually trying to understand that individual's personality berkaitan dengan tabiat dia membeli. Also, so we want to understand kenapa dia beli celak warna merah, for example. Why did she go and buy a eyeliner that's actually red in color? So maybe it has got something to do dengan dia punya lifestyle. Maybe she is a very hardcore punya, what do you call that, K-pop punya follower, and the trend right now is actually the red color punya celak, and so on and so forth. So that's what we're trying to discover when we look at psychographic factors in relation to the consumer. Okay, so here what we're trying to do inside tactical targeting, okay, apa yang kita nak buat dalam tactical targeting ataupun apa yang perlu kita buat ialah kita perlu tekankan ataupun we have to focus on aligning it with the customer value and customer profile, where we focus on effectiveness and also efficiency. Effectiveness and also efficiency. So in tactical targeting, what we're trying to do is we are trying to reach all the people inside the segment that we have already chosen strategically. Okay, so here when we're trying to reach all of them, of course we have to find an effective way to go out and reach all of them. Okay, kita kena cari jalan yang kita boleh capai that we can actually reach the customers that we have already said that these are the customers we can actually fulfill their punya needs. Kita nak customer ni, sekarang bila kita outreach dengan customer ini ataupun we start our marketing communications with these customers, we can find a way to effectively reach all these customers. So if we can reach these customers, we can effectively reach all these customers, then only can we actually make them aware of their punya company punya offering, dan juga then offer macam mana dia boleh membeli barang kita atau give them the access to the offering. Okay, so effective. So then we go to the next one, which is efficient. Okay, untuk student marketing dan retail, you know for a fact that when we actually do marketing activities, we always consider efficiency. And the reason why we consider efficiency is because marketing needs to spend money to make money. Kita punya marketing communications punya activity, kita punya branding punya exercises, kita punya product punya what you say, the look and feel of the product, all that requires money to actually make all those things, right? So there is a cost involved in creating value or creating products. So here we cannot run away from the principle of efficiency sebab we know that kita tak boleh waste any of the resources. Okay, kita tak boleh waste any of the resources. So here when we actually do kita punya tactical punya targeting, we must make sure, okay, we must make sure that kita memang boleh, or the money that we spend can actually reach the customers that we actually want to target. Okay, so you can see here untuk tactical punya targeting, dia punya underlying principle ialah kita memang nak align kepada customer value dan customer profile, tetapi kita nak buat dengan cara yang efektif dan juga efficient. Okay, so it means everything that we do, we have to make sure that it is we can capture the market that we actually want, we can reach out to the market that we actually want, and we can do that in a cost-effective punya manner. Okay, just to hit this just to hit this idea through, for example, let's say you are a nelayan. Okay, you are a nelayan. Okay, you are a fisherman. So as a fisherman, you have already agreed that you will only catch a certain type of fish. Let's say it's a puffer fish. Katakan sajalah, it's a puffer fish. So when we want to catch a puffer fish, we know that inside the laut, di dalam laut tu ada pelbagai jenis ikan. Ada ikan jerung lah, ada whale lah, ada tortoise, turtle lah, ada what else? Ada seal lah, macam-macam ada dalam laut tu. Tetapi apa yang you nak tangkap adalah you nak tangkap puffer fish. Okay? So here kalau kita nak tangkap puffer fish, maka kalau kita menggunakan jala, there is no guarantee what we will get. We'll get all sorts of things dalam tu. Ketam pun adalah, sotong adalah, macam-macam pun ada dalam jala tu. When you pull back the jala, kita dapat all sorts of things. So when we pull back the jala and we see all sorts of things, we are only looking for the puffer fish. So all the things, all the other things that we get, shellfish lah, sotong lah, we have to throw back into the sea. So it takes us a very long time to go through all the benda yang kita tak nak untuk dapat puffer fish tu. Sebab produk kita hanya untuk puffer fish. Okay, so that's why we have to figure out an effective manner and an efficient manner di mana kita boleh, bila kita throw out kita punya market offering, that we can actually reach that particular puffer fish. So instead of using a jala, maybe we use what you call that? Joran. No, it's not joran. It's a fishing rod to actually go and catch the puffer fish with the right type of bait. So here we are not looking at mass market. Dia memang bukan mass market, kita nak segment. So bila kita buat segmentation tu, we have to see whether segment yang dipilih tu kita boleh capai ke tak dengan cara yang efektif dengan efficient. Okay, if you all are okay with this explanation, can you give me a thumbs up? Ataupun tak okay? Yeah, so okay, good, that's good. Right, yeah, so yang nampak. So this is something that you kena, logic ni kena keluar tau dalam you punya report later on, where you have to make this type of argument. So that's why I said, these are all the rules of thumb, but later on bila you nak buat justifikasi tu, you kena apply balik dengan brand dan juga segmen yang anda pilih sendiri. Okay, so once kita dah tahu yang, okay, kita dah tahu yang kita boleh collect information ni ataupun dapatkan information ni untuk build dia punya customer profile. Bila kita build customer profile tu ataupun segment tersebut, we can represent that segment by using a persona. Okay, kita dah ada segment tu. So let's say segment A tu, dia akan ada persona dia sendiri. Segment B, dia akan ada persona dia sendiri. And the thing about the persona is that the persona tu basically adalah a representation, okay, a representation and also a description of that particular segment yang kita nak target. And you will see that this is actually dia punya hypothetical target consumers. So kita bayangkan inilah consumer yang sesuai untuk business kita. I know most of you can do this very well sebab every time there is a group assignment and you all need to do some sort of description of the customers, especially for coffee places, memang a lot of you all always write about Starbucks, Zeus Coffee, Tea Alive dan sebagainya, even though Tea Alive is tea. A lot of you all are very good at describing dia punya persona. So for example, you akan kata yang Zeus Coffee punya customer base ataupun dia punya segment adalah people who like to drink coffee in the morning, who like convenience, that's why dia guna app dia. And they are people who are on the go, dia nak pergi kelas ataupun dia nak pergi kerja. So I know you all have this skill where you all know that you boleh nampak, okay, you memang boleh nampak kalau Zeus Coffee dia kena, ciri-ciri dia kena macam ni. And you all are quite used to actually giving me some sort of profile lah, okay, some sort of description yang orang ni kena suka minum kopi. Alright, orang ni adalah orang yang sibuk. So roughly you observe what is actually out there, then after that you describe balik. Okay, the only difference with what you usually do and this is that usually kalau you buat segmentation punya exercise is based on evidence. That means that kita as the marketer ataupun market research punya team kena keluar untuk kumpulkan dia punya evidence, and kita kumpulkan evidence dia dari segi apa? Dari segi ini. Okay, so you collect all the evidence. That means that dia betul-betul kena jawab survey tu. And then kita dah tahu lah, oh orang ni, income dia berapa, dia tinggal dekat mana dan sebagainya. Dia punya attitude towards coffee ialah dia adalah coffee lover. Okay, so kita bagi dia punya questions, dia jawab dan kita dapat evidence tentang dia. So based on evidence tu, kita letakkan evidence tu secara kolektif, that means kita kumpul, kita buat analisa dan kita akan dapat segmen 1, segmen 2, segmen 3, and then segmen 1 ada persona dia sendiri. Okay. So dalam persona dia sendiri, kita ambil balik apa information yang kita dah ada, kita describe balik. Okay, and that's when you will see that, okay, we have pengguna that, okay. But the thing is, the catch is that bila kita buat persona ni, you nampak yang persona ni seakan-akan summary of that segment. Betul. Okay, dia seakan-akan summary of that particular segment. So if we say that segment 1, kita dah tahu, oh segment 1 ni adalah orang macam ni, But the danger is that kita overgeneralize. Okay, and we shouldn't overgeneralize. It should still go back to dia punya evidence kata apa. Kalau ada evidence tu ada, data tu ada, okay lah. Kita boleh kata, okay, persona dia adalah macam ni. Jangan menganggap benda yang tiada. Okay, jangan menganggap benda yang tiada. If it's not there, the information is there. Don't go and overgeneralize it and say, yeah, they must also be like that. Nanti masuk longkang. Okay, and what I mean by nanti masuk longkang is that when we overgeneralize, the segment ataupun dia punya persona takes a different spin, and then you will see that it's very difficult to actually match the company punya product to the target customer because it's just untrue. It becomes untrue, and we don't want something that's actually untrue based on overgeneralization. Okay, so to show you a persona example, this is actually from your textbook. Okay, this is from your textbook. And inside your textbook, the example given is actually Sunsilk. Okay, and Sunsilk ni, bila dia jual satu Sunsilk ni, dia buat market research dan dia tahu bahawa Sunsilk ni adalah untuk 20-something year old punya female hair. And you can see that dia punya description ialah, it's actually Katie, dia bagilah nama dia. And then you can see that dia punya her perceptions and attitudes and the way she dealt with her everyday drama. So hidup dia ada what you call that, ups and downs. Quite an interesting punya life. So a 20-year-old punya female, you can see that this is dia punya persona. And if you actually go to Sunsilk punya what you call that, punya website, you will see that this is the image that I actually got from Sunsilk punya website. which actually describes dia punya persona. So this persona is useful for companies to come up with, because sometimes if they actually get the whole exercise correct, they can actually target the right person, and the targeting information they can also use for dia punya conveyance of dia punya brand, of dia punya marketing communications, kena pada target yang dia nak, and it also reflects the target that they want. Okay, so you can see that frequently dalam your everyday life, when you look at advertising that's deliberately created by a company, you can already guess who that product is actually for. So for example, if it's Burl cream, it is a man, okay, it's usually a man, and he is of a certain, he's actually quite younger. He's a younger punya crowd. Okay, so when you actually see those representation of those characters or those influencers or those actors or those people, they are chosen specifically because they fall in or they match up to the persona of who the brand is actually targeting. Okay, so persona ni dia banyak penggunaan dia, membuat segmentation also banyak kegunaannya, not only for building dia punya 4Ps, building dia punya positioning, but juga in some occasions can also be used for advertising dan juga marketing communications. Right? Okay. Then we want to touch on single segment targeting. So if we already understand the segments and we know that inside our marketplace there can be a whole variety of segments, is it possible that companies actually choose only one segment? So single segment targeting. So in this example here, where you can see this is a Porsche, they did actually choose only one segment. And the segment that they choose is actually the sports car punya enthusiasts, which is why you can see that for the longest time, Porsche punya kereta is performance dia tinggi, is a very performance related punya car, right? It can go very fast, pecut sangat cepat in the under 10 seconds, they can go very far, right? And you can also see the shape falls in with what is interpreted as sports car, right? So this does exist in our marketplace, where you can also see that after they do the segmentation punya exercise, they kata, okay, we're only going for single segment punya targeting. So if you actually go and see their punya, what do you call that, Porsche punya collection of the different cars, you will see that they typically, when you think about a Porsche, until almost recently, you actually picture this type of model of cars. Okay. Then we go further into single segment targeting. Okay, so we already established that dia pilih satu segment saja. Okay, dia memang pilih satu segment saja. Tetapi yang ni, they go even deeper inside that segment. So they only want to capture a very small portion of the market of the consumers. And this is known as niche marketing. Dah lah single segment, satu je. Dalam segmen tu, dia pilih lagi segmen yang sangat kecil. This is known as niche marketing. Okay. So the example given here for niche marketing adalah this airline called Allegiant. Okay, Allegiant is not in Malaysia. It's only in United States. So if you've recently looked at a map of United States, you akan tahu yang United States tu besar. From one end to another end, dia punya time zone berubah. So that indicates that it actually covers a mass amount of land, right? So then what is the fastest way to actually travel between these locations? That will mean that for some people, maybe they akan pilih flight, right? Because the landmass is just so big. So of course you already would have guessed that dalam United States tu memang ada banyak airline. Okay, a lot of airlines fly into and out of United States. A lot of airlines fly across United States, especially for the major cities. You can already imagine that memang ada banyak flight masuk dan keluar. Tetapi in a country as big as United States, kita ada lagi smaller punya airports. We have smaller punya airports, and so happen this airline actually choose leisure travelers. That means untuk cuti lah, right? Untuk bercuti, leisure travelers dan dia tak ada stopping, non-stop, direct flight lah. So they give a direct flight to places which are actually which have smaller markets. So dia tahu that kalau dia terbang kepada tempat ni, dia akan menggunakan plane yang kecil sebab this is not the major spots. But janji dia bagi non-stop flight. So it's a direct flight. Okay. So when they actually make this offering, they already know, dia memang dah tahu bilangan consumer dia adalah rendah. Dia memang adalah niche punya marketing. Bilangan consumer dia memang adalah rendah. So, apakah dia punya business model yang sesuai? So, business model dia yang sesuai, or the suitable business model is where they actually charge for everything. So, they're not using full service punya model. They're not using full service punya model. Rather, you can see that they charge for all the services. They're very cost aware. Because their flights are not daily, they are weekly flights. So they already know they are flying less frequent, they are flying routes that do not have a lot of people flying. These are not the popular locations. And what they also try to do is they akan cross-sell their punya vacation products. So you're already going on a holiday kan, so might as well you buy everything from their website. They give you the packages that they think their leisure travelers might actually be interested to buy from them. Okay, so this is a niche strategy lah. So untuk execute niche strategy, they have to know who those customers are that they're going for, what is the size of that particular segment, and then they actually have to come up with their punya business idea yang sesuai. Tanpa business idea yang sesuai, then this is going to be very difficult. Dia kena tahu apa yang is dia punya competitive punya advantage. Okay, untuk cater kepada market yang you dah tahu is only very limited. Okay, boleh? If you're still okay, can you give me a thumbs up? Okay, thank you, Aisha. Just give me a moment for me to take a sip of water. Just give me a moment to take a sip of water sekejap. Oh, okay. Okay, please come back. Please do some stretching. You don't want to sit on your bum for too long. Remember to stretch. Okay, now let's go on to the next slide, which is targeting multiple segments. So tadi kita tengok satu single segment, kita break into niche. Dan sekarang kita tengok dia punya targeting of multiple segment. Okay, so more than one segment. So here, it's still up to the company. So if the company actually goes for multiple segments, then they can actually choose to go into product specialization, ataupun they can choose to go into market specialization. Okay, so if they go into product specialization, product tu tak berubah. The product doesn't change, it's just that one product. But that one product maybe can fit into different segments. So all the different segments require only that one product. For example, the black umbrella. So semua orang menggunakan payung semasa dia hujan. Alright, so most of us have got a payung hiding inside our asrama, hiding inside our house, at the back of our car, kita ada payung. Payung tu memang benda ataupun produk yang standard saja, kita tahu dia buka macam tu dan kita guna semasa hujan. And you can see that regardless of whether I am an auntie, you are a young person, kita mungkin dalam segmen yang berbeza, tetapi kita menggunakan produk yang standard sahaja. Okay, so here this is called product specialization, where you akan nampak where dia akan fokus pada produk yang dia buat untuk diberi kepada pelbagai segmen yang berbeza. Okay, they can also choose to go for market specialization, di mana dia akan target banyak segmen. Okay, dia akan target banyak segmen. Okay, and untuk setiap segmen ni, dia faham yang segmen ni memerlukan benda yang berlainan. They understand that the segments actually require different items. And so they come up with an assortment of products. That means dia ada banyak produk untuk dipilih oleh segmen-segmen yang berbeza. Okay, and to help us think of an example, you boleh nampak di sini this picture of the logo of Hallmark, and you know that Hallmark actually makes cards. Dia memang buat greeting cards, the paper punya greeting cards, right? And if you actually go to the shopping mall and you nampak Hallmark punya display, you will see that you can find cards for birthday lah, you can find cards for wedding lah, you can find cards for graduation lah dan sebagainya. Sebab these are all different assortment of the product yang sesuai untuk occasion yang berbeza and correspond dengan customer groups yang berbeza. Okay, so this ties into how the company will actually go out and deliver dia punya produk kepada multiple segment sekiranya dia memilih multiple segment. So it's up to them lah, how they want to execute, and they might well know that in fact there is no synergy among the segments, so they have to figure out how they actually want to roll out their punya product. Okay. So you can see very clearly that after we've gone through all the information, that when we talk about segmenting the consumer market, what we're trying to do is we're trying to divide the market into dia punya grouping. There are two approaches to this. Sometimes we look at the market and then kita letak customer dalam grouping. Okay, that means the consumer, the company or the market researcher is the one that letak dia dalam group. On other occasions, you might see that the consumers themselves already belong in groups. Naturally, dia dah ada group sendiri. Okay, and you will see this very clearly bila anda menggunakan social media. So when you use social media, and if you join, for example, Club Rekreasi Hutang Lang in Facebook, ataupun you follow Club Rekreasi Hutang Lang dekat Instagram ataupun TikTok, you automatically already indicate that you punya interest ialah you suka pergi hiking ataupun you suka pergi hutan. Okay, so sometimes the consumers themselves, based on dia punya expression of apa dia suka, dia dah tunjuk apakah group dia. So mungkin orang ni adalah orang rekreasi luar, right? So there are two ways lah. As I mentioned, kita boleh buat research dan kita letak dia dalam group berdasarkan apa yang dia jawab, berdasarkan hidup dia, ataupun dia sendiri dah tunjuk dia actually adalah peminat so and so, this and that and this. So dia automatically dia dah masuk ke dalam grouping dia. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to put customers or understand customers better by making sure that they are actually well defined. Okay, that the segments are actually well defined. And you can see that when we actually look at dia punya consumer punya markets, we can use things like demographic segmentation. So kita ulang balik sikit, where you can actually see that these are the criteria that typically will fall under demographic segmentation. So from all of this, because it's not very difficult to understand all this, you've seen this many times, I'm just going to highlight life cycle stage. Okay, life cycle stage. So as we journey through life, we go through different stages. So we start as a toddler, and then we go to primary school, then we go to secondary school, and then we become an adult. And even in adulthood, you will see that people's lives are different before they get married and after they get married, and so on and so forth. Okay, so in different life cycle stages, we can observe that people buy different things. Before you have children, you will never buy diapers. But after you have children, you'll see that you need to buy a lot of baby things, diapers, clothes for your children, and so on and so forth. So that's typically the idea that we have when we learn about life cycle punya stage. However, we should also consider that when we talk about life cycle punya stage, there are some life cycle stages that we hardly ever talk about. Ataupun it actually exists, dia memang exist, tapi kita belum memberi tumpuan kepada life cycle stage tersebut. So for example, dekat China, dia ada this thing called Singles Day. And Singles Day every year is celebrated on 11/11. Kalau 11/11 dia ada dia punya what you call Mandarin equivalent of the pronunciation of Singles Day lah. So anybody who's single what they do is they will self-love. So when they self-love, you will see that they might actually spend money on themselves by getting their favorite outfit lah, taking themselves to self-love, taking themselves for a date lah dan sebagainya. Okay, so based on this activity that they've been doing for a long time, Singles Day dah lama. Okay, is within the Chinese punya culture. The e-commerce giants actually took advantage of that or used that knowledge to their benefit. Okay, so once we had e-commerce punya companies, what they did was that they actually celebrate Singles Day lah. Macam kita celebrate Valentine's Day ataupun Father's Day, Mother's Day. Usually kita keluarkan duit. Usually we spend money to take our parents for dinner or something like that. So that same logic kita apply kepada Singles Day, and you nampak that the e-commerce punya giants actually roll out dia punya Singles Day, and in actual fact dia punya sales meletup. So you can see here dia memang generate quite a lot of money for that particular event. And if you've actually noticed, kita juga ada guna logic ni, because our country is not the pioneer in e-commerce, right? Our country is not the pioneer. We are the follower, one of the follower countries. E-commerce actually started in United States, and then in China, when they had Alibaba under Jack Ma, you see that thing exploded. So when the platforms actually set up in Malaysia, they were looking around to see any good ideas that they can actually mimic what actually works and so on and so forth. So they happened to notice that 11.11 dia punya sales meletup. Okay, so the 11.11 that you are actually enjoying now dekat Malaysia, dekat Shopee, Lazada and so on, is actually derived from this Chinese punya holiday of Singles Day. It's just that we don't interpret it that way. We interpret it as year-end punya sale dan sebagainya. Okay, which fits into kita punya cultural interpretation. So my point is that there are sometimes when we look at the punya demographic segmentation, we can actually find some information that we've taken for granted that we can actually turn it into something that fits into the consumer punya daily lifestyle. Okay, gender, I won't go into it lah, because gender, I think, especially this example has been discussed many times already. So we know that this is a shaver, and shavers are differentiated from male shaver and also female shaver based on what the genders actually, how they use the shaver. Okay, so here also I won't go into it because you've seen this many times. I just want to mention a little bit about culture. Okay, and you will see that in Asia, we have a lot of different countries that some of the culture actually overlap. And when the culture overlaps, sometimes that's an opportunity. Okay, so for example, Japan, South Korea, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, and also Indonesia, we are all rice eating culture. That means kita suka makan nasi, kita biasa makan benda yang bernasi. Kita pun ada juadah makanan yang berpulut. So for us, we have all the pulut panggang and things like that. Those are normal that we can consume. And similarly, when you have cultures like Japan and also South Korea, they memang ada benda macam sushi, gimbap dan sebagainya, which is, as you've noticed, is quite easy for us to actually accept this rice-based punya makanan. Okay, so sometimes the similarities in culture can create opportunities for what you might call it, for segmenting. So those can actually indicate similar cultures. Then the products that they sell or the services that they sell can be easily understood, and you can see that that allows an opportunity into different markets. Okay, so this also I won't go into it very much. It's just geographical punya segmentation, which most of you already know very well. I'll just give you some information about Nielsen Claritas punya Prism. Okay, so Prism is a system that was created by Claritas, and then Nielsen bought over, or it's actually managed by Nielsen punya group of companies. And Nielsen is a company that's very well known to do market research. So their focus is trying to understand consumers, and then they do the research and so on, and they sell the information out to businesses. So if businesses want to understand segments ataupun they want to understand their consumers, they can always pay Nielsen or go to Nielsen to see what information they have, or pay Nielsen to actually do the research for them. Okay, Nielsen is in Malaysia, and it is also in United States. So Prism ni, in actual fact, does not focus on Malaysia. Rather, Prism actually focuses on United States, because United States is besar kan, and they've actually managed to come up with 68 different segments dekat sini. So if you want to see more about Prism, you can actually go to Claritas to see that they actually sell understanding of consumer behavior and also segmentation as a service. Okay, so the point here is that we can use different tools, whether created by other companies or market research companies in Malaysia, to actually put together data to build segments, and then the company needs to match the segment with dia punya what the company actually wants to sell. So yeah, you can see here. Okay, soalan cepu emas. Can the number of segments change over time? So this one very easy to answer. Yes, the number of segments can change over time. The number of segments will change based on the criteria that they actually use. So if the trends in the population actually change, the criteria that they use changes, then you'll see that the number of segments will actually change. It's not fixed. The segment names and the segments that they form can actually change over time. All right. So I won't go into detail in this. You can take a look at it if you want to. I'll just highlight this one. Okay. So for consumer segmentation, we know that we can use psychographic punya segmentation. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand the consumer punya personality, right? As we've learned tadi. So this example here is about Honda Element, which is this boxy car dekat belakang ni. Okay. And in actual fact, Honda Element ni, when they designed it, they thought that their target would be 21-year-olds. This car is for people like you, all right, in their 20s, okay? And this car is designed for that particular target. And when they actually design it, it is boxy because it is actually dorm room on wheels. That means you boleh tinggal dalam sini, macam glamping. You can actually sleep inside here, right? You can actually sleep inside here. And you can take this car out, you can, you have a lot of space to actually put your things and so on and so forth. However, when they started selling this car, they found out that the people who are actually buying this are middle-aged people. All right, you can see that their average age is 42. And also a lot of baby boomers are actually buying this car. And they're buying this car because they want to stay young. Okay, they want to stay young, right? So you can see this is here. I took this out of your textbook because I want you to show you that sometimes segmentation and targeting can actually yield unexpected punya result. Kita ingat kan kita dah target bagus-bagus, kita dah buat everything, kita dah launch dia punya kereta, dah jual, then tengok-tengok baby boomer yang beli is not all hanya 21-year-olds ataupun 20s yang beli. So these things can happen. These things really do happen punya tau. Sometimes you actually see that there are targets that don't know come out of where, and when you actually try to understand them, then you will actually find out, actually dia punya personality ialah dia tahu dia dah berumur, but dia beli kereta ni sebab dia nak stay young, dia nak continue to be muda lah, they want to have the feel lah of being muda, right? So that can actually happen, right? That can actually happen. So just remember this example, when you are later on in work and then you see a target exercise that at the end dia punya result macam tak jadi ataupun got surprising results. Okay? Okay. Now that we finished the consumer punya segmentation, we look at segmenting the consumer markets, we've already completed. Now we go into considering what are the criteria used to segment dia punya business punya market. Okay, so for business punya market, The criteria that we use could be things like dia punya demographic factors, same like the consumer punya factors. And then kita masuk kepada dia punya operating variables, purchasing approaches, situational factors dan juga personal characteristics. So why do we look at this? Okay, when we want to segment business punya markets. So to imagine this, you can think of a company like Petronas. And Petronas, you know that they sell petrol kepada consumer markets by using Mesra. For example, you go to Mesra, you got the petrol station and consumers buy petrol and pump their car. Or Petronas can also have their punya B2B punya arm where they sell petrol to different companies. So for example, you can imagine all the airlines that fly into KLIA, maybe they are refueled by Petronas. Okay, so they sign a contract and so on. That means that they sell to companies that fly into Malaysia that they will actually refuel all their aircrafts. Okay, so you can imagine that if I'm a business manager within Petronas, then how do I understand my business punya market? So to understand my business punya market, I need some information. And the type of information I might collect to actually help me make my decision could be demographic punya factors of that industry. Okay, I'm selling to other businesses, so I need some demographic factors of businesses. So for example, what industry are they in? Okay, so tadi I kata that they are all in flight industry, right? That's why they all fly into KLIA, right? What is the company size? Are they a low cost airline, small low cost airline, or are they a big full-fledged service punya airline? How many routes do they actually fly to? That will indicate their punya company size. So company size could be, maybe it's a very big company, maybe it's upstart company, smaller company, right? Where is their location? So where is their headquarters, where they're flying in from? Okay. Then here you can also see that some information that I need to actually inform saya punya segments is dia punya operating variables. So in dia punya operating variables, we want to know factors that are connected back to macam mana dia beroperasi. For example, dia punya teknologi, apakah teknologi yang digunakan oleh customer tu. And then we can decide whether dia adalah user ataupun non-user punya status, meaning that are they already existing punya customer dengan kita, and out of kita punya existing punya customer base, are they heavy users, medium users, light users? Okay. Then we can also look at dia punya customer punya capabilities, meaning that we are looking at whether we should serve customers needing many or few services. Also, they have to jawab. So what you're seeing here is they're trying to understand their customers based on how they would describe an organization. Okay, based on how they describe the organization, they're trying to collect the information that will help them put all these companies into different segments. So to put them into different segments, each segments, naturally you will already guess that they must have something in common. Okay, they must have something in common. So for example, if we think about dia punya purchasing approach, are these companies that need to have open tender, or are these companies that can go into contract punya negotiation? Do we actually want to go after the companies that open tender, ataupun kita nak companies yang dia memang negotiate one by one? And why? Why do we actually want to go after these companies that way? So here, when we actually look at business punya market pula, we have to understand how the business actually works. And when we want to create value for businesses in the business markets, we have to understand what are our capabilities as an organization. Boleh ke? Kalau dia open tender, boleh ke kita masuk? Do we have the competitive advantage to actually bid on the open tender and win? So if we don't have, if we are at the very bottom of the the marketplace where we cannot compete with the bigger players, then maybe we shouldn't go for customers which require open tender. We want to go for customers which we can negotiate direct and come up with a contract. So it really depends. So here when we talk about business market punya segmentation, and this is actually established punya body of knowledge. Memang kalau you cari kertas that actually talk about business markets, you akan jumpa banyak. Different industry, dia ada different types of segmentation punya pattern. Dia menggunakan segmentation criteria yang berbeza-beza berdasarkan dia punya sektor-sektor yang berbeza. Okay, so here you can actually see that there is such a thing as business punya markets lah. And for business markets also, typically companies also segment to actually understand the company better. So orang sales, kalau dia adalah orang sales, memang orang sales ni akan cuba untuk pick up company ni, pick up dia punya information by either doing second hand punya research. That means they go and search in the websites, they search in news to actually find out dia punya information, ataupun dia membeli maklumat. There are actually companies that actually sell information about companies. Dia boleh membeli maklumat, ataupun dia pergi jumpa dengan, dia dapat appointment dan dia pergi jumpa dengan representative dalam the company that they are interested in. Then over lunch ataupun over tea ataupun during the appointment, dia cuba untuk mendapat maklumat yang dia rasa adalah penting untuk then dia continue untuk gauge whether dia boleh sell to these companies or not. Okay, so there's a lot of what do you call that? A lot of processes where you will see that there are people within marketing punya department kena cari maklumat ni supaya they can make a better decision. Okay, okay, are you all doing alright? Kita dah almost done with the class. Okay, yeah. So do you have any questions about segmenting the market based on dia punya consumer punya segmentation dan juga market, business market punya segmentation? Ada soalan tak mengenai this one? Any questions at all? Okay. Okay, yeah. So okay. So I'm looking at your attendance sekarang, and there are a few spaces that are actually empty. Before I close the attendance, can you please make sure that you already put in your attendance for today? Because every week, as I told you, saya memang download attendance ya. So even if later on you masuk minggu ke-5 dan you letak present semua, it's still not present ya. Saya memang download every week. Okay? Okay. If there are no more questions, then we will end the class for today. And I will see all of you on Wednesday. Okay? All right. So thank you very much and see all of you on Wednesday. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam.
Bye, Rehan.
Thank you, madam.
Bye, Risha.
Thank you, madam.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam.